Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Monday Win by Noon webinar. Hope you guys are all doing terrific. I think some of you know it by now, but not all of you do. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and it is always my pleasure to be here on Monday speaking with all of you. And I'm always excited when I get joined by my co-host, none other than Deborah Bird from Plug and Play SM. What's up, Deborah?
Hello, happy Monday. How are
You know,
you?
it's always fun to be together. I was just in Vegas for a few days and you weren't there, so it's fun hanging out with mortgage peeps, but you're always missed.
Yes. Well, thank you for telling me that I was missed. I actually just got off the phone with someone who randomly said she was on her way to get like water from the back, and she had tried to reach out to a few different people on help with social media, and she ran into Adam, and Adam was just so nice and so kind and helped her with a few things that she needed help with, and then sent him my way. So you guys at Win by Noon are just so sweet.
Well, that is great. I love hearing that. And then I'm gonna frame today's show, but before I frame today's show, we should just talk real quick about this. And I feel a little guilty that I own one of these, and I'm planning on using it myself next quarter. But this is the very, very limited edition Plug and Play SM edition of Win by Noon. And so we've all, by we all, I mean Adam, Deborah, and myself, have all gotten lots of emails about it. So I guess first off, thank you, Deborah, for allowing us to do this collaboration. I'm very excited about it.
Well, you know, what made me think of it was when you were doing that interview with John Downs, and that was a great interview, by the way. I loved how authentic he was with just exposing the fact that maybe he's been out of sort with selling and not doing some of the things that he hasn't had to do for a while. But when he had said, ironically, Deborah's system is very similar to Win by Noon with the theme days, I'm like, of course, I did that by design because I was an early adopter of Win by Noon. And when you have focus and clarity of what to do each day, it can help with consistency and accountability. And I will say that's the number one issue that most loan officers tell me when they sign up for a discovery call, that it's the consistency part. It's their problem.
I totally agree. Consistency is everything, and most people overthink it and just don't realize that they can make it easier. So that's what you do for us. But those of you who are like, well, wait, I want to get that, just know, just stay tuned. We'll talk about it probably more as we get into Q4 of this year, how you can get one for Q1. But I would say just email myself or Adam at Win by Noon, either Todd or Adam at winbynoon.com, and we will figure out if you've got a subscription and you want to have that version of it. I think that's probably enough said on that. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. That if you were wondering if if you could get a free one, no, we are out of all of them. So if you saw the video or you see it later, just know that we are out of all of them. But yes, go ahead and email. I've been telling everyone to email Adam at winbynoon.com.
Perfect. That is exactly it. Let's put it all on Adam, and then that way, because all you do is you email me and I just forward it to Adam anyway. And I'm going to play with it. It's going to be my personal planner for the quarter. So you never know. I might actually be better at social media by the end of all this.
Yes, you will be. You will be.
So I've always joked that when you and I get on here, every time we talk, it's random thoughts from Deborah and Todd. And when Dave handed us one of the Friday masterminds a while back, I joked it was going to be called Random Thoughts from Deborah and Todd. And Dave was kind of like, I dare you to do that. And I was like, well, that's just what we already do. And then I got inspired. I listened to Tim Ferriss's broadcast. So I think a lot of you know Tim Ferriss, and I really enjoy, he's got a buddy. His buddy's name is Kevin Rose. And I've listened to Kevin on and off throughout the years. He's been really on this total crypto NFT focus for like the last year. But pre that, I really enjoyed listening to his podcast and everything he did. Although I actually learned a lot from about NFTs and crypto from his other podcast. And he was the first guest ever on a Tim Ferriss show. And every once in a while, they do random shows. Now, the difference between their random show and the Deb and Todd random show is that they typically are drinking while they do it. And in the old days, they used to drink a lot. Like they were like, whoa, loopy by the end of it. But I just listened to Tim Ferriss's most recent broadcast is the random show. And it was him being in LA, hanging out in Kevin's apartment, and Kevin was drinking some kind of bougie champagne and Tim was sipping tequila of some kind. And they were just talking about random stuff. And I thought to myself, maybe this will be the first and last because people are going to think it's the worst idea ever because we're just not that interesting. However, I was just thinking we should just maybe do a random show. And yes, if mortgage and social media stuff pop up, great. But I always feel like there's just so much more that I could ask you about that would create benefit for those in our audience. Does that sound fair? Are you up for it?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I would encourage everyone that's listening right now, if you guys have some questions or things that you want us to ask each other, let us know.
Yeah, exactly. If you're here in Zoom watching this live, and if you're watching this recording, you missed out on this opportunity, and you may never get it again. But this would be your opportunity to ask Deborah and Todd in Zoom any random question you have. And I thought I would keep it. I kind of got a list of questions written over here in my planner that I was gonna ask, and I really thought I was gonna start off with something super interesting because I know you of all people are. I was gonna joke and say you're the healthiest eater I know, but I know you're not the healthiest eater. But it sounds like you've been trying to make a little bit of a change. So,
Mhm.
what's like the healthiest food you've eaten recently that you thought you would never eat?
Strawberries. I know that sounds
Strawberries.
so basic. It's
Yeah,
not
I
that
don't
I
know how to answer
wouldn't.
that one. That's okay. All right, strawberries. That's really going out on a
It's
limb,
not really
people.
that I'm choosing to eat healthier. I eat a lot of meat, and I don't even know, I'm sure you're a great one to ask. I'm sure red meat, because there's a lot of red meat. Steak, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, chicken. I don't eat a lot, so I don't eat breakfast or lunch. I'm the worst. In fact, when people wanna do lunch meetings, I'm like, "I just don't eat lunch." It's not because for any other reason other than I'm usually working through the day. I've always liked to work, and then I'll eat at night. So I didn't know what intermittent fasting was. I naturally started doing that. Really, it was back when I worked at the law firm. And so my body's just not used to eating a heavy breakfast or lunch. So when dinner comes, I mean, I can eat an entire tombstone pizza or sausage and cheeseburger or barbecue. And so that's the only thing that I'm doing is I'm not eating Oreos every night like I used to. So I
That
don't know if
sounds
I'm
very
making
sad.
healthier choices.
That sounds very sad. Yes, you're definitely a intermittent faster ahead of when it was cool to be an intermittent faster.
Yeah, and it was just for efficiency. Like, even when I used to be a teacher and I was like, every time I would give blood, they would tell me, "You're dehydrated, and we're really concerned about the color of the blood." And it was all every time I'm like, "But I'm teaching all day and I have a baby sitting on my uterus." So strategy is I can't go to the bathroom every 20 minutes because I have a classroom that I have to tend to. So I just trained my body almost not to require a whole lot, and it hasn't started showing signs yet, although I'm sure I'm rotting from the inside out. But I don't really eat any colors and or any fruits and vegetables.
Well, I'm not here to bust anyone's chops. It was just a question. I do drink a lot. I've got my electrolytes here. Gosh, you can't tell with this virtual camera. I got a bottle of sparkling water here that's open. So like I'm all So that's one thing I'll lecture on. Let's stay hydrated.
But
That's really important.
is there any benefit to the sparkling water? I mean,
It's
is
actually
the
not as good for you because the bubbles are actually supposed to
oh,
be bad for your bones. It's not supposed to be good for your calcium, but I just like it better. So I tend to drink more of that, or I do drink 64 ounces though in my fancy little bottle here every day with electrolytes in it.
mm. Have you ever tried, like, the IV water? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, the IV hydration?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
I just get
it
like
makes me feel like
low
I'm more hydrated when I
low
drink that.
sugar, low sugar electrolytes. All
Mm.
right, so let's switch gears. Let's go to this one, maybe more business focused for those who are missing out who joined us since we had a bunch of people jump on, wondering what the heck are Deborah and Todd talking about. This is the random show. We're just talking about random things. So let's
Random
just talk about
things.
a book. So is there a book you've read recently that wasn't a business book, or is everything you read business books?
Does As a Man Thinketh count as a business book? It's more mindset. I don't
It's
I don't read for fun. It's usually mindset, personal development, marketing. There's very few things outside of my go-to that I consume, like travel or I don't. So, As a Man Thinketh, have you read that book?
I have read that book. That was a book I read during the financial crisis was given to me by Coach Steve Scanlon.
Oh.
And he said, because everyone was all boo hoo hoo. In fact, it's probably a good homework assignment for all of you. Now that rates are above 7%, people are all boo hoo hooing to really think about mindset. You're right, really, in the fact
Mhm.
that we're going to survive this. We've all survived every market that we've been in. And, certainly in my 20 plus years in the mortgage industry, I haven't seen a jump like this in interest rates. However, we're all going to survive. Well, let me say that differently. We're all going to survive it for sure. Whether everyone survives it in the mortgage and real estate business, I can't promise. I believe those of you who do right things consistently will.
So I'm also one of those that I love buying books. Like if I go to half price books or Barnes and Noble or ones that I buy on audio, I love books, but I kind of get bored easily, or if they start to repeat themselves too much, then I'll set it down and I won't go back to it. But I did have something that I took a picture of from over the weekend. I don't know which book this came from because sometimes I pick up a few. I'm going to ask you this question from it. You ready?
Oh
Now
Lord,
you're in the
okay.
hot seat.
I've been trying to keep the hot seat on you. Did you notice that?
I noticed your strategy. What important truth do very few people agree with you on?
What important truth do very few people agree with me on? That's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm that far out there in the wild world
Mm.
of what I think. So I
Any
don't know that there's
financial beliefs? Like, some people are very against crypto.
well, I would say that well, we can talk financial. That's an easy one for me to answer. In fact, I was on with my one of my financial advisors today called me, and he's been speaking to a lot of real estate agents, right? So I'm heading over to KW Wealth in Austin on Wednesday. So any of you in Austin, ping me. I'll be there Tuesday with John Downs, Tuesday afternoon through Thursday, and I'm gonna have some barbecue while I'm there. And and I was challenging him, this financial advisor, because he was saying, well, if you would have put $1 million in an account with us, we would have $65,000 of taxed harvesting for you, where you get 65,000 off on your taxes. And I said, well, that leads me to believe then that you're actually losing money of the $1 million that you wanted me to give you. And and on the flip side, I subscribed to Dan Rawich, and I heard Dan Rawich in January or early February say, well, I told y'all in December that I went to cash. Now, Dan always moves a little quicker than other people because he's a contrarian. And so I took all of my retirement accounts that I manage and I moved them all to cash. And I wasn't smart enough to move the other couple of smaller accounts that I have that I'm playing around with that I all to cash. And so, uh, and I don't really talk crypto to very many people. I mean, I own crypto. I dollar cost average into it. I buy crypto just Ethereum and Bitcoin every week through Coinbase on a recurring buy. And I know you've got some crypto stuff because you put me in some crypto group, and I keep meaning to ask you. I don't know who these people are that keep talking in this group. But in fact, it's funny. The person I talked to the most about crypto is John Downs, and
Oh,
but I
really?
don't. Yeah, I'm just investing in general. Again, there's just not a lot of people you talk to. Kevin Kaufman, I've talked to him a bunch about crypto and investing. Like this, those are probably the two people outside of my financial advisor. But I think for me, I'm a big believer in a lot of debt, but only mortgage debt. So I think in this crowd, people will agree with that. I mean, I just took 5 of my rental properties and pulled a significant amount of money out to have money available because I feel like there's going to be opportunity over the next bunch of days. I am closing on a house this week, $36,000 or $35,000 house in Oklahoma that I'm buying. It's going to
What?
take about 10 grand worth of work and be able to rent it for $800. So that closes at the end of the week. I'm very excited about that.
Wow.
Um, but so I took 3.5 to 4.25% non-owner occupied mortgages, and I refied them at 6.5 to 7%. So I think people would maybe disagree with that,
Mm.
but I also believe that next year I'll be able to refinance them back, probably not at 3.5%, but I'll be able to refinance them back lower. Took the cash out hit now. I'll do rate and term refinance down the road, but I did do that on 5 properties. I own 14, so not all of them,
Wow.
but I did do it on a chunk of them, and I had 60% equity in all these properties. So now those I took all up to 75 LTV, whatever the max for non-owner, 70 or 75, whatever that number is.
I think 75. I don't know.
And more or less did
So
no cost refis.
do you know which market? Have you heard of Cardone Capital, Grant Cardone's, real estate?
Yeah, you forget. You don't remember that dinner we had with Jeremy Forcier where I said, oh my gosh, this guy from Cardone calls
Oh,
me all the time.
yeah.
And Jeremy called the guy and left him a voicemail.
That's really funny. Yes, that I was embarrassed for that guy. Which city do you think? So I got it's like the 20 top markets to have rental properties in. Yeah, the top 20 markets. Which one do you think was number one?
I hope you say Tulsa, Oklahoma, since I just spent 35 grand there.
Nope.
This sounds like a Dallas question. This sounds like a Texas thing. Like Texas must be at the top of the list.
Miami, Florida.
Well, that's where he lives. No wonder he likes that
Miami,
market
Florida.
so
The
much.
second one is Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Number 3 is Orlando, Florida. Southwest Florida. is number 4. New Jersey, North
This is
Jersey, New
this
Jersey
is
was
to buy
number 5.
properties now?
Mhm.
And what's his point? On what criteria?
He's looking at a competitive score, prospective renters, lease renewal rate. He breaks these all down in each one. Average vacant days, occupancy rate, share of new apartments.
Yeah, I don't, it's, I mean, obviously the guy's done super well. He was one of the people that I think it was Craig Sewing put up some
Oh,
slides. Someone put up some slides from him at the conference in Vegas talking about the fact
oh,
that he had put up and said, don't buy real estate. That you shouldn't buy real estate. You should be a renter, which I thought was just kind of funny since obviously he's got a lot of dough in the real estate
I
world.
think he means a primary residence, but he just rents it from himself.
Yeah. See, I think
So
that's where,
yeah, he has been coined. I don't see Oklahoma on here at all. Sorry to tell you.
that's all right. Listen, my numbers work. My numbers work. All right. So let's come up
Yeah.
with another random question here. Um, All right, we talked about food. So give me some advice that you've given outside of the business world, or it could be business advice lately that that you were surprised to either hear yourself give or that you thought the person on the other side was surprised to hear you give.
Um, Only thing I can think of just recently, because we have my oldest daughter is 12, about to be 13. She's my only daughter, and she's the
Going on
oldest.
20.
Yeah. Unfortunately, becomes a mini coach because she'll listen to a lot of the same things I do. And then, all those things where she's like, Mom, it's just in your mind, mind over matter. Like what you tell yourself. I'm like, okay, do as I say. Um,
Love it.
but I guess really with her and really with all my kids, it's just I struggled a lot with just being secure and feeling like a shadow my entire life and not having enough self-worth to go after, big dreams. Even just me cutting the cord on all these other ventures that I was on to finally go self-source, like have my own business and no other safety nets. Um, just being bold and believing and knowing that rock, paper, scissors, like I've always been able to succeed no matter there wasn't a lot of safety nets with us growing up. Our parents, we pretty much raised them from a young age. So just teaching them to take more risk and knowing that I don't care what the grades are. I don't care if you make a 20 on a paper. I really don't care about the grade. It's more just what are you learning by the mistakes and are you taking enough mistakes every day, because to me, you can be grateful for those failures 'cause it helps you learn quicker. And that's my only issue with school is it teaches you, the more red X's you get or your value is based on the grade on top. And I'm like, as long as you're not repeating the same mistakes, like I don't care. It's just learn to make them, but then go back and look at your papers and find out why and go to your teacher and figure out what was it that you were missing. Because too many times we get nervous and we won't ask or we just look at the grade and think, oh, gotta just do better next time. And you have no plan of how are you going to do better next time, and just taking more ownership of their learning. So I've told them teachers, their job is not to make sure that you learn, their job is to teach. It's your job to make sure you're learning and taking ownership of your learning. So you need to be like raise your hand and ask questions. And I just wish I would have done that more so as a kid. I've done it now that I'm older, but it took too long to get there.
Yeah, it's so funny. I wish I was a pretty confident kid. I was actually a fairly scared kid. And
Mm,
I became confident a little bit in college. And I think sports gave me confidence, right? As a bike racer, winning races, I think gave me a different level of confidence. Once I believed I could win, I always said there was the guy that I trained with. His name was Terry. Terry was super fast. We'd sprint at the end of training, and he could beat me. But you got in a race,
mm,
and it was all up here, head game to him. He couldn't get out of his own head to be successful. And then when I could finally convinced him he could win, he won, and that was a big aha moment for me that it just wasn't that I could teach myself to do it. I could help other people do it. And when you talk about learning from your mistakes, of course, I'm drawing the correlation between the market today, which I don't
mhm,
think is going to be like the financial crisis of 10 years ago from a real estate perspective, but I do think from a dollars perspective, it could hit people, the same way. When I was prepping for my conversation at Mastermind, can't remember if I said this to you on one of these calls or if it was off the call, but Josh Medlin and I were talking about it, and he felt like there was two groups of loan officers: the loan officer who had no business and was super fearful, and then the loan officer who made a lot of money the last couple of years had a lot of cash in the bank and wasn't at that point of fear yet, but would be at some point when they realized they had, that bank account was starting to drain. And that's why when I say, I made different choices in this time in the financial crisis, I'm happy I could afford to do it, and I was in a financial position. But my whole goal was is to not relive it. And where I really believe I missed the boat last time, there was a guy, Chris, I can't remember his last name. Chris was an auto mechanic, and I always had all these investors who were kind of hopes and dreamers. And then I got
Mm.
this buddy, Scott Gibson, who I don't know if you were on when we interviewed him once. I think it might just been me and Dave in the mortgage coach community. And Scott was a REO agent who ironically I got coached by Bill Hardy, went from selling like 7 houses one year to 700 the next year in the REO days.
Wow.
And Scott came to me and said, "Hey, it's time to buy $30,000 houses." And I said, but you just, in one breath, he said house prices were still going to go down. And the next breath, he said we should buy $30,000 houses. I'm like, well, why should we buy houses if prices are going down? He said, well, there's not going to be more $30,000 houses. And I was so
Mm.
busy rebuilding my business, which is what I had to do to pay my bills. And I won't dig into my financial story. But this guy, Chris, what he did was he literally had somebody writing like dozens of offers every day on properties, lowballing them. And then he was going out and buying them with hard money. And
Mm.
and so he was paying 18% interest on these properties, but they were 30, 50, $80,000 houses, and he could rent them and cover the rent on those. And so I got to imagine that the last time I talked to him, he had 80 or 100 properties. So the guy's he's got to be retired for sure out of the mechanic business. But again, he executed on a plan that, had I slowed down to, I would have if I would have done the numbers on it, I would have said, hey, that's actually a pretty good plan. I could do that plan too because I didn't have a ton of cash back then. And so my question for everyone here would be is what am I doing right now to put myself in a better financial position coming through with everything that's going on? And you really first and foremost make sure you're going to survive. And then secondarily is can I put myself in a position to take advantage of opportunity that falls in my lap, which is, ultimately what my goal is. And I'll finish up going back to my financial advisor story. I was challenging this guy on, he's like, well, if you would have given me this money, I could have created this, this money. I'm like, but you would have lost money along the way. So I said, well, what are you telling people now? And they're like, oh, dollar cost average, put in money over the next 4 to 6 months, a little bit of money. And I'm like, well, I listened to Dan Rawich this morning. He's like, market's going to still go down. I'm like, that's bad idea, right?
Mhm.
Traditional mindset, not what I would call the modern mindset.
Mm.
That was
Awesome.
a rant. Sorry, I was way off there. So what do you want to take away from that? I think the takeaway is let's kick some ass in this market and let's not be fearful.
Well, that's what my did you watch my video on Friday?
No, I haven't watched a video yet.
Yes. You need to watch the video. We had an event last week at the same time that the mastermind was, and we had a real estate coach come and speak, and it was much more powerful than I thought it was gonna be. I guess I didn't think real estate agents would wanna hear it's not as sexy as a topic as, like, social media, in my opinion, but it was all about leadership, and is it possible that the next 12 months could actually end up being the best 12 months, and what would have to happen for you to be proud of yourself? And a lot of times the struggles that we've had and what we've been able to overcome are the things that we are most proud of. So it's then looking at, okay, what are the skills that I need to learn? Or what are the types of problems in my business today that I'm going to need to be able to solve, whether it's people with your team or process workflows or whatnot, to make it to where just because everybody else's story and belief may be that this is going to be it's still going to be a hard 12 to 18 months, but it doesn't mean that it can't still be your best 12 to 18 months. So he was really big on how do we now be intentional about that.
Well, first off, I
Um,
love that we've gone random back to business because I think that's probably important that we have. And I think that's a great question, right? I mean, really, how do you be intentional around it? Because I do believe, I was talking to my business partner on the mortgage side about it today, and I just said I really feel like this is his opportunity to dig in and take market share when people
mhm.
are fearful, right? That there's this great opportunity. Like one of the big teams that he works with, they're lost like a third of their agents. Well, probably
Wow.
because they're not in the business anymore. And so I love that hat of what would I need to change and what's the skills I would say that what are the skills you
What
need and what are the
skills do
problems
you
you
need
could
to
solve?
learn? And I started to
Dang.
think about, what tools are people investing in, whether it's Mortgage Coach, Lender Launchpad, Dan Rawich, Rate Watch. What have you not gone deeper on to really learn so that you're getting as much that you can out of the tools that you're investing in, as well as getting very clear of how to use social media as a tool, not just a toy where it could really become a pillar of your business model? So just there's things that if people would just learn, like I had a coaching call with a client that was a subscription client. Now we just do coaching, and she's young, she's a newer LO. And just from the time that we had been helping her to now, the number of average closed loans, like she's like, I'm up. She's now, when she first started with us, she was like 1 or 2 loans a month. And she said she's consistently for the last 2 months closed 12 loans. And then the
Holy
month before
smokes.
that, she was at 10 loans. So she was super excited and just felt confident. And now people are asking her. And she's like, I really feel like the social media has done a lot with accountability where I have to learn. So it's kind of like what John talked about with having that knowledge acquisition time to then be able to have something of substance to share on social. So it's been a double edge for her while building a brand. And I told her that's kind of what I've been working with my sister on. And how do you then monetize having a brand? And what are you doing to create other streams of income now that you've built it? You're great at giving it away for free, but what if you did something, you know, yourself that then you've worked so hard to get to where you're at. What if you showed people how you did it? And so, building a personal brand and just going deeper on, maybe it's learning how to communicate. Maybe it's the nonverbal communication skills when you're presenting. Maybe it's taking Amplify so you can learn influence. It's being more intentional because we've been so busy and been reactive and more tactical, probably where we haven't been as proactive as we could be. So now's the time to dig deeper on off season, so to speak, so that you can set yourself up for best success come Q1.
All right, that last 4 minutes was pure gold. And it was so hard for me to keep my mouth shut when he said, like that leadership's actually pretty cool, almost as cool as social media. I like that part. Like, you're like, oh my
I
gosh, I
love
really
leadership
enjoyed it.
too. I just didn't think it'd be as sexy of a topic for people to get in.
It was, I think it's really critical. I followed, Renee spoke on the second day, then Ryan Grant spoke, then Josh Metal, then
Wow.
lunch, and then it
Wow.
was me. Right. And so I joked, someone in the elevator joked with me. I said, oh yeah, I'm competing with Ryan and Josh, or something about going on after Ryan and Josh. And they're like, oh no, no, your biggest competition is lunch. That was Josh who actually said your
Yeah.
biggest competition is lunch. They said, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
can't believe you're going on after those two. But what I talked about was totally not exciting, right? It's really, I'm like, yeah, you guys, this kind of boring topic was, you actually have to do what you need to do every day if you're going to actually implement the things that you've learned from all these other folks. And I think that that's really where it's kind of hard for me when I'm talking to people. I feel like you got to get your critical business activities done first. You all know that, before you do everything else. But there may be a few people here who are getting it done anyway, right? We know Parkinson's law is that activities expand to fill the time available. We all know this. If you have 27 things to do today, you may or may not get them done. But if you're going on vacation tomorrow, you're going to get them done, right? The day before vacation miracle. And I feel like there's some people who almost might need to do their social media, their knowledge acquisition as part of that morning routine. In fact, I'll tell you, it's funny. If they would have let me go and redo my slides. So when I start teaching Win by Noon going forward, I've always taught two non-negotiable daily disciplines: lead follow up, and then follow up on apps who haven't converted. And I added a third one in from the stage, which was social media. I couldn't put a slide in there, but yes, I know Deborah's given one of these behind the
Good
scenes. You guys
job.
can't see it.
So
Well, but
proud.
my thought on it is that you have to either be, I don't necessarily think you need to do content every day, right?
Hmm.
We'd say otherwise, but it may be the content you have to do every day, but if not, it's the interaction that you have to do every day. You've got to be active on social every day. And so that should be part of your daily disciplines. And so that would probably be, if you said, hey Todd, what's something new now that you believe today that you didn't believe a week ago? That would be it.
Well, and even just the power of Facebook groups. If you're a real estate agent, you've probably spent time in Facebook groups or at least realized the value. And I can't remember the lady who spoke that you had on Todd earlier in the year who talked about the power of Facebook groups, but just social listening. I will go into different mortgage groups or real estate groups just to see the types of questions that are being asked, different ideas that people are having. So sometimes it's not always that you have to be, producing content every day. And I don't necessarily believe that everybody should be on video right away. Some people need a little bit more presentation skills, or some are just better writers. And maybe they would be better at doing blogs and writing, emails and doing another form of marketing. But we can all be better listeners and really seek the needs that our audience may have by just going in different circles or different masterminds. To me, I think it's easier to do it in different groups, but I do think you need a time limit in your calendar, which is why I was so fired up to have the Win by Noon edition planners because I don't want social because it can so easily become a distraction for people. They see that little notification and so they immediately go off and they look at what was said or commented or liked and they then drift. And so it's setting I always set a timer, a 15-minute timer, and it's doing my prospecting time during that time or consuming in different groups where I have, groups that I like to go in more frequently. Just because social listening is a huge value beyond just producing content.
All right, so that's a challenge because I've been transparent with this group. I've really struggled with, we've been hanging out now for a year plus, having you part, literally weekly as part of my world, and I have failed you in taking the action that I need to take. And I kind of do in spurts, but I'm just not that consistent with it. And it's like everything else. I think the moment I choose that it's important, then I'm going to become consistent with it. And I feel like certainly once I'm up on stage teaching about it, then now I really don't want to look like that jackass who says, "Oh yeah, do social," and then you look at my social like, "Wow, Todd posted once this month."
hmm Well, maybe when you post on Instagram, I don't know if you know this, Todd, or you've probably seen it because I've done it with you a couple times, but you can only invite one collaborator. So when you go to tag people, you tag like normal and it will show on their tag feed, but it's really not super powerful. You really want to be on the main news feed. So on Win by Noon, I could invite Todd Bookspan as a collaborator. What happens is you get a DM that says, "Hey, you've been tagged as a collaborator. Go ahead and review. Do you accept?" And so you could choose which ones do you want to approve. And maybe you want to have some of those also shared on your Todd Bookspan Instagram, but it will allow, that one action to be multiplied on those two accounts, or we just link your Todd Bookspan one. I don't know if you want, 5 posts a week going on your Todd Bookspan, but if you've ever noticed at the top where it says like Win by Noon and Todd Bookspan, have you ever
Well,
seen
I've
that?
accepted those. Anytime you send me one, I'm like, Deborah must think
Okay.
it's important, so I better do it because I'm all about, me. It's jab, 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 right hook, and but
Mhm.
like I'm so lame. Like even last night, I'm like, oh shoot, I got three daughters that I love. I better post about Daughters Day. And so my posts were both really lame. I did two
No,
different
they
pictures,
weren't.
one different one. Well, I just didn't like. I saw people who just do these really thoughtful posts, but I was sitting there watching Amazing Race with my daughter. I keep telling her maybe that you never know forever. I don't think we're ever going on Amazing Race, but I'd love to go on Amazing Race with her. It would be a great thing for her personally if she ever chooses to do it.
Yeah.
But that's why but I did it. So I guess that's better than not
Good.
doing it. You said it was great. I got a lot of interaction, so I guess that's what you want.
You know
All
why?
right, so
Because people get an inside look of you. They wanna know the human side of you. Like, what are things like, what's Todd working on in his world? It's just that peek behind the curtain, and it unfortunately, it's the reality TV show world that we live in of just who is Todd Bookspan beyond just mortgage and productivity.
it wouldn't be that interesting. But
My life is not.
that's all right. I talked about my financial advisor conversation. Talked about my toll side. I'm trying not to be so. It makes it sound like I'm focused on money and I'm not, right?
Mhm.
But right this week I am, right. I'm flying to to Texas for that KW Wealth thing. In fact, we've got I introduced Dave and Brett Tanner today. Brett, who's running that, so we're going to have him in the mortgage coach community soon. Getting him in there.
But what
But
about
me,
hobbies? Hobbies?
well, I'm into sports a little bit. Like I go to see the Cardinals play, but I don't know if I'd
Oh,
call that a hobby. For me, hobbies hanging out with my wife and kids. We hike, like
yeah.
that's it. So I posted a story from hiking this weekend.
Yeah.
That was
You
pretty
did?
good.
Yeah.
I did, right? So hanging out with friends, I mean, that's kind of my thing. I used to be hobby was drinking craft beer, but I don't really drink very much. I'm kind of boring now.
Think of it this way, if your great, great, great grandkids who you never get to meet wanted to know a little bit about their great, great, great grandfather, they could always go back to your social, like that lives on. And I enjoy seeing my father-in-law social, even though he's not with us anymore. But what would you want them to know about you? What lessons would you want to teach them that you don't have the
I mean,
opportunity to teach while you're
YouTube
not
might
here?
still be around, right? But maybe Facebook and Instagram won't be.
Very true. But it's still you can go back and see, even some of the memories that pop up or just,
Well, that's
people want
legacy,
to
right? That's a lot of legacy
yes.
planning, and I think that's a lot of what I believe in. But we also interviewed Kevin Kaufman. He talked about that book, Die with Zero. So
Mhm.
I also feel like there's a line between living for the now and then also living for the future. I mean, we've talked a lot, maybe offline. Like I've opened up comma insurance agency that my daughters own 2/3 of. I have other things that I've done. The other guy that I'm bringing with me to the conference is another financial advisor, the one whose group I teach in 25 minutes, right? I do a 90-minute class with them once a month. And I'm bringing Kyle Furler, who leads that and teaches a lot about infinite banking. In fact, I'm going to bring him into the mortgage coach community, I think, as well, as a result of the conversation, because I do think that legacy planning is something that's really important. And so I think it's just a matter of, for me right now, I'm trying to get back to where I was pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I was focused on personal growth as an entrepreneur. And then now I'm kind of getting back into that. I reconnected with some of my Genius Network friends, and just looking at that kind of stuff. Even like talked to Josh Medal about that. He's like, well, I told my son about getting back into Genius Network. He's the one I joined it with. And he's like, I don't know, I can make that big time commitment, but let me know what you do and maybe I'll jump in with you. And so that's kind of fun too, is like, who do you know that might jump into one of these other classes, or something else that you might do, so you've got somebody to do it with and hold you accountable. Like, I was going to go to this KW Wealth thing by myself, but I invited John to go, because he told us on the call, I don't have a whole lot going on. I'm like, perfect, come to Austin with me. So he's coming, and he's leaving early on Thursday morning so he can be at his kids' sports stuff that afternoon. I'm going to stay there and eat barbecue with my really fun cousin, or whoever else pings me from the community here. So I do think there's other opportunities to do cool stuff. I mean, for me, it was travel. So I guess, what I really believe, and I hate saying it, but it's true. I think I became pretty stagnant during COVID in the person I was. And which is kind of weird, because you and I've done so much. I've done more on Zoom and this kind of stuff as a result. But I really want to put myself back out there. So it's fun being on stage. It's fun doing this random show with you. It's gonna be fun hopping on another plane and going and hanging out with almost 200 realtors. So that's it. What's a good hobby that you have that no one knows about?
Well, I'm a mom of 4 who they all play 2 sports. So hobbies
So
at
your
the moment
hobbies is
is
an Uber driver.
pretty much. There's usually about 3 practices every night, and then multiple games over the weekends. So if you ever see me sunburned or peeling, it's because I did not apply my sunscreen and it was 95 degrees. But I used to be a painter when I was younger, and I painted this huge mural. I remember in our middle school, where I loved art, clay work, and I've gotten away from that. Really, my hobby, as bad as this sounds, I know you're not going to like this, but when I could be on vacation at a beach and I'm usually listening to a podcast that's psychology or marketing, or I really enjoy studying those areas, and it's a passion. And I do have people that are like, when do you ever take a break, or when do you turn it off? Denise is always on to me, can you ever just not think about another marketing idea? Because we went and got our nails done, and she's like, do you ever just turn it off? I'm like, I do, but I don't look at it as work. It's just, I'm a creator, and I actually enjoy it. Like, that's what I would choose to do. Even if I had time off, it would be to learn something that I'm interested in. So some call that a workaholic, but I'm like, it's a passion. So where is there the fine line of, I finally have learned how to create what I'm good at and my passion as the same thing, which is great, because I used to have to do all of this after hours and I couldn't do it during the day when I was working. So um that's probably sounds very lame, but I love my hobby, I guess, would be studying people. So I do like to study why people do what they do, or challenging people on certain views that they have, and just getting them to think in another perspective, and maybe that would change the outcome, is
I
changing their
don't think it's
response.
actually, I think you're at that time in your life where actually having that passion for that knowledge acquisition, I think, is
Mhm.
really important. And I feel like we all go through phases where you need to do that. Like, I like to fuel my mind that way. My only caution would be is, like, my challenge is I got fairly one dimensional during COVID. And so then
Mm.
when I try to have a different conversation, so if I was sitting there having my nails done with you and your sister,
Can we
I would
please make
probably,
that happen?
yeah, let's for sure. That'll
That
be our
needs to be
next.
our next Win by Noon
All right.
webinar.
I'm all for that. I may or may not have had a pedicure on Mother's Day. Is that when I did it? I had purple toenails. I shouldn't say that, but I had purple toenails for probably a month. I did that. My daughter and my wife are like, "You have to do it, Dad." I'm like, "All right, I'll do it."
That's funny.
Um, and They were
So
Phoenix
not
Suns
one
purple.
dimensional.
Well, I think that's the risk. The risk is you go out with a group of
Yeah.
people, and all I can talk about is mortgage and planning, right? So it's how can you get around it? But I do think you have to have there's times in your life. I think if I was a loan officer or real estate agent struggling right now, I would absolutely become a student of what's going on in the economy, so I could talk and teach about that. And then I would also probably go back to what you said. What are the skills I need, or the problems that I need to solve? And I would really figure out. I get really laser focused on that. I think when stuff is hitting the fan and you're at risk of from a career risk, or people around you are, even if you're doing fine, but there's people around you are at risk, then you've got to go all in and really jam on that. But I think that there are times where you need to sit back and say, could it be different? So what I need to do is study. This summer, I read like 7 or 8 books when I was in California, and I slept really well, right? So you and I both wear our little Aura rings, and
Yeah.
my readiness score, my sleep were great. Now, when I was there, I didn't drink a ton, which is shocking since I was in California on the beach. I read for relaxation at night. I wasn't on my
Mm.
phone. I wasn't on my computer looking at the stock markets or looking at other, like, I wasn't doing any kind of studying before bed. I slept most mornings until I woke up. But I mean, I went to, it was 6:30 ish, maybe later than usual. And my sleep was great. And I think it's just because I let my brain unwind. And the
Mm.
funny part is I read 2 series of books. This author had a different series. I started and I'm just not into it. So I just
Mm.
haven't read more. So that and again, I'm not, my readiness score is not as good. All these other things are not quite there. So maybe that's part of it. So maybe if you
Actually,
had some other
we did
hobby, it
read
would help.
we read the JC Dugard book. I don't know if you remember who that was. She was a girl walking home, or she was walking to school. She was 11 years old and she got kidnapped. And it wasn't until she was 22 till she was found. My whole point of reading the book was with my daughter to teach her that when she's walking to school, just mindlessly on her AirPods, not paying attention, safety. You never know what could happen. So to always
But that would
be
scare the
safe.
crap out of me if I was a kid.
Yeah, well, sometimes kids don't listen unless there's a story. So she also had to do a book report. And so we decided to read that one. But I also went to a concert this weekend, and I will say it was the Cole Swindell concert. So he used
I
to
didn't know who
be
it was. You
a
posted that the song reminded you of some family members who had passed away. So I was taken by that. But I didn't know who the person was.
Cole Swindell. So he was a songwriter, and he's written a lot of hit songs for like Luke Bryan and like Shelton, but now he sings his own songs and he's made it big. But one of the girls that came on stage before him, she was discovered because of TikTok. So she said there was this little thing, she was younger, when everything was shut down. She was like, I downloaded this little app called TikTok. And so, all these years where I used to be in the back of the bar, like just watching people on stage, always wishing it could be me. She's like, I just picked up my guitar and thought I'll hit record. And she now has a record label and she's now opening for Cole Swindell. So she was discovered because of TikTok and putting herself out there in a different way.
I just love that. I love stories like that. There's that girl M something or other. I just like it because my
Uh-huh.
daughter's Emmy, Emmeline,
Uh-huh.
and so M, but she sings that something little bug song. So she's another TikTok person.
Yeah. There was a thing with Jennifer Aniston where she was saying how TikTok is ruining the role of an actress or celebrities, and it's because now you can do so much even with just a phone, where they have these, short form filmmakers, because the back lens is always better than the front lens on your phone. And if you have things like this, which is like a stabilizer, so you can do great, tilts, and it's a stabilizer. Anyways, there's people creating short films and getting discovered for their creativity where you don't have to be a celebrity or an actress, where it's
I
just
don't
the
think it
same
ruins
old.
anything. I think that she's 100% wrong. I would argue with her that that's
I
that's
know.
what the beauty of it is.
Yes, I do too. That's my downtime, is I don't I like watching TikTok and seeing adults be kids again and letting their inner genius and creativity come out. It's funny.
All right, so I'm digging this. All right, so we're almost at 45 minutes. So let's just roll for 5 more minutes. I got to have a hard stop so I can just go through my slides one more time for this financial planner group that I have to wow. What so are you watching any TV or like movies, like anything there that you were like super impressed with this year? I know you watched Elvis movie twice, so tell me about what you loved about the Elvis movie.
I love I'm currently watching the Captain documentary because I didn't watch it earlier. I like documentaries and hearing people's stories and how they became who they were. So like David
We get along
Letterman,
well with my
that's
wife.
that.
She watches documentaries all the freaking time.
I wasn't always like that. Like I also like Masters Inc., I think it's called. It's a tattoo competition show. And then this
Missed
other
that one.
car show where they restore cars, which I thought was really interesting to see this piece of junk. I like old classic cars, but you'll see how they then turn it into,
Well, I like those
living
shows
a
too.
yeah, I like that. I did watch The Bachelorette with my daughter, and it was a great teachable moment for
We
her.
call that the Trachelorette in my house. Like, it's
Yeah. I
trash.
have not seen that show in years, but, she's getting to the point where she's thinking about dating and, um, so it was a great
My family
lesson.
watched during COVID, and I said, well, if you guys are watching, I'll have to watch it with you. And my brain, it's a little softer now because of all that. I mean, like,
Uh-huh.
truly, like, I learned from The Amazing Race and Survivor, that I felt was good for my head, but I'm still trying to recover from the Trachelorette.
The only other trash one that I hadn't watched for years, and then my sister and my niece got me hooked into it, was Keeping Up with the Kardashians,
Oh, I
which
refuse.
I will say they had a new episode, and I was telling my daughter, I'm like, "See, even Chloe, doesn't matter how much money or how much you can buy." She was cheated on again by her, I guess, significant other. They're not married, and she had a surrogate, so they were about to have their own child, and she was devastated, and I tried to show her, it doesn't you're not immune to any struggle in life, that everybody has struggles, and, it's hard to also live in, like, the amount of hate that she gets from social media. There's a lot of fans, obviously, there's also a lot of people that really hate the Kardashians and the death threats that they get, and,
Yeah, which is
so
too bad. I don't have any hate for them. I just the show where they just sit around and talk. But
yeah.
as I was saying that, I realized that, but I mean, they're billionaires, right? They're super successful in business, and I'm sure that if I studied that, I would learn something from that. And maybe I'm just jealous because my life isn't fun enough that people would watch me wander around. But there's obviously lessons
Well, they've built
there.
brands out of it, like, now they have that's what, Kris Jenner was on, the masterclass series about how to develop a personal brand, and, she makes 10% profit off everything. So, that makeup lines that they have, and then the Spanx or whatever that Kim has, and there's all these little things that they've learned how to monetize based off the brand.
Well, no, no, it's super impressive. I mean, I would never take anything away. I would recommend we're watching. There's two different Lakers documentaries right now. There's one that's like
Oh,
that fake
yeah.
one that I'm not
I
watching that one.
haven't
There's another one. I think it's on Hulu, but it's like it's it's there's a new episode that came out today, so it's like 7 episodes in. But it's behind the scenes. It focuses on the Bus family who founded the Lakers and just talks about them. But it's interesting because as a Phoenix Suns fan, I never appreciated Kobe Bryant because he came in and kicked our ass all the time. But
Mhm.
it's been interesting to watch them talk through from the owner's perspective, and then they talk
Mm.
to Phil Jackson and the other players, and they talk about, it's just interesting. I have a different respect for him, and then also for the ownership, that family that owns it, and kind of some of the business decisions that they made. It's not like earth shattering. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it's a good 7 out of 10, informational documentary. And so we watched a little bit of that this morning, a few minutes, not a whole episode. I don't have that much time in the morning, and just while we drink our
See,
coffee.
I guess that was what was most eye-opening to me with, Elvis is I kinda felt bad for the guy. I thought he was just used as the workhorse and from a young kid and, shoved pills and probably didn't even realize how much there's no sleep and you get paid only when you go on stage, so it's like working him over and over and over, and sometimes I feel like team leads or certain positions could make you feel that way, and you get lost from the center of gravity of just knowing why you're doing what you're doing and what's the purpose and when is enough, and, did you watch Elvis? You did, right?
I have not seen it yet, so it's
Oh,
on my list. That's why I want to watch it, because you had watched it not once but twice.
Denise
I
wasn't a
don't
big
watch
fan.
that
She
much.
watched it the first time, and she was like, I don't get it." I'm like, "I thought it was
I only
great."
watch shows with Giselle, and then Tara and I will watch a show while we drink coffee. So,
Mm.
that's about it. Every once in a while.
Did you
We're watching
see
the Game of Thrones, the Dragon show. That's the other thing that my wife and I are
Never seen
watching.
it.
So
Man in
it's
the
good.
Arena, have you seen that one?
No.
The documentary with you gotta watch that one with Tom Brady. It's
DB,
great.
he's got good initials.
Yes.
That's about it.
DB.
Again,
Maybe
you know
I
what?
may have a chance.
I've not liked him either, but again, I'm growing. Maybe this just means I'm maturing because I'm growing a respect for the legacy, the
Yeah.
legend that he is. Right, and after he won his last Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, then I became, got a little bit on the Tom Brady bandwagon, for
Mhm.
sure.
Well, it's a good one. It shows he like recaps each year, and it's just there could be loan officers or real estate agents who may have had a few bad years, and it doesn't mean that you can't win again. You just have to get through those times.
Look at that. See, you made it all about business. That's a perfect. And now I'm a little disappointed that none of the people who hung on here to the end, we lost 3 people. So you 3, you missed out. Sorry. But thank you all for being here. And we got no questions from those who hung out to the end. So number one is let Deborah and I know if you thought this was just the worst waste of time ever, or if you're like, hey, that was interesting, but you could have done this to improve, or hey, it was just awesome as it was. And, I do feel like when we get on here, we can turn anything into a business conversation. You just proved it. So I think that's what life is all about. So as always, super grateful for you, super grateful for all of you who watched, and we will be back here next Monday with something interesting to talk about, whether it's me talking about what I learned in Austin, Deborah talking about um, what she learns, because she
Housing
learns
Wire.
every freaking day.
The Housing
And
Wire event is next week.
are you going to it?
Yeah. I haven't
All
bought the
right.
ticket. But
All right. Well, perfect. Well,
all
then
right.
maybe Deborah and I we'll be in the same city. So I'll see you when you're in the
Yeah.
same city. You guys are all awesome. Appreciate you all. If there's anything that we can do to be of help, let us know. That's what we're here for. We're grateful.
Bye.
Adios.